There was a small town up in the mountains. This tiny town was once buzzing with life and activity, thriving during the silver mining period. But after the mine was closed, the townspeople left, looking for new riches to be found somewhere else. The old mining town became a small logging community. There were still a few people who lived there, and it was big enough to have a school. The old mining rail track leading to the mine was off-limits to everyone. There were always murmurs about the tracks, warnings of how dangerous they were, all because of the accident that had closed it down. The rail track bridge was the only way into the mine, and because of the many stories that went around the town, people stayed out. The town wasn't what it used to be, and the locals were starved for entertainment. The most exciting place was the run-down watering hole where everyone would flock to for a drink and reminisce about how great things used to be. The town was a boring place for younger people as well, and the teenagers of the town would often do crazy things to try stop the boredom. One gloomy day on the anniversary of the infamous accident, a few rebellious teenagers went up to the track that led to the mine. They loved to scare themselves by walking onto the rusted old bridge, and when they lost their nerve, they would turn and run to the safe side, laughing all the way back. This day was a little different. The wind was chilling and cut right through everyone's clothes, sending a shiver down their spines. The clouds looked sinister. They were heavy and dark, rolling over the town, bringing with them a sense of dread and despair. Olivia knew that something wasn't right and had a bad feeling hanging over her. Looking up at the brooding darkness above them, she knew that something bad was destined to happen. She didn't want to go up to the track on this day. The stories always specifically warned everyone of the anniversary. She remembered her grandmother's story about the unholy mine and how she made her promise she would never step over the bridge. Her grandmother would tremble, and her voice would break every time she would talk of the haunted mine. "Guys, I don't think we should be doing this today. You know what they say about it?" she pleaded with everyone. Some of the other teenagers chuckled at her, saying that she was just scared and that she should be braver. Some even said the stories were all made up to scare everyone away from the mine. "I'm not scared," Olivia replied with a quiver in her voice that she desperately tried to push back. She was a little scared but didn't want to show it to the others. "What do they say about the anniversary?" asked Jake, a newcomer to the town. "Well, they say that the track and bridge to the mine is haunted by spirits from the mine accident. And on the anniversary, if you get too close to the mine by crossing the bridge, the spirits come out to claim your soul, and you can never escape," Olivia said in a serious tone, surprised by how much she sounded like her grandmother after uttering the words she heard countless times. Jake was a little shaken by the story because Olivia had told it with such feeling and emotion. The others had heard the stories so many times that they were immune to the words of warning. They arrived at the track and started following it towards the bridge. They didn't have to worry about any trains running up these tracks. There hadn't been a single cart running on the line since the accident. Sensing Jake's apprehension, the other teenagers took turns sharing the stories they'd heard about the mine. One teenager told them about a zombie horde on the other side, and that when you cross the bridge, their arms burst through the soil and grab your legs. Then they pull you down into the earth so that you can become one of them. Jake gave out a nervous chuckle. This story was a little more far-fetched. Another story is that there is a real ghost train that goes towards the mine carrying all the souls, and when it passes you on the other side of the bridge, the miners reach out and grab you only to pull you down into the depths of the mine. Then no one ever sees you again. They say the sound the train makes is so terrifying that you are grounded to the spot you stand on, and you cannot move a limb, frozen with fear and eyes wide open. Some even say that the train's horn is the screams of the miners' pain and desperation. It strikes terror in anyone who hears it. One of the teenagers let out a scream. Jake was startled by the blood-curdling scream, making the other teenagers chuckle with joy. They were feeding off the fear building up in Jake, and it made it even more exciting for them. They had rounded the last corner on the way to the bridge. They could see it. It still stood there after 80 years. The rust was so rough that you could almost feel it just by looking at it. It had a slight curve in it, and it seemed to invite anyone there to come across it. The boards were old but strong and didn't show any signs of decay. The children decided to try a quick scare run to see who would run back first. They set their feet on the bridge and slowly walked forward towards the other side. Olivia had already picked a spot out that she would stop on and turn back. They crept a little more. "Why does it feel like it's pulling me in?" said Jake. The others jumped a little as there was a deadly silence in the air, as if sound didn't dare cross the bridge itself. "It always feels like the bridge has a strange power and pulls you to the other side," said Olivia. "It is trying to lure you across to your death." Thud! One of the teenagers kicked a loose board and it made a hollow sound. They all turned and ran back laughing as they went. They knew it was the board, but they loved the thrill of it. The build-up and the moment it switched to fear, then the payoff, the run back to safety. They were all laughing and breathing heavily on the safe side of the bridge. Tyler was always overly cocky and wanted to prove he was the bravest one out of all of them. He would always do the craziest things and got injured doing them. He then bragged about the scars as a badge of courage. He had another motive today. He was going to be the only one in the town to make it across the bridge and return. He would be famous for his bravery and rub it in everyone's faces. Everyone here would be his witnesses, and they would spread the story throughout the town. They did another scary run on the bridge they got close to halfway, and Olivia had already started slowing down as she approached the spot picked out. The old bridge creaked loudly with the weight of everyone, and they all turned and ran back to the safe side. When everyone regained their composure, Tyler announced what he would do. He said he was going to cross the bridge completely and return. Olivia told him he was being a fool, and he didn't need to do something idiotic again, but was set on it and would not back down. They began walking along the bridge, following Tyler, trying to persuade him out of going the entire way. They also didn't want to look scared in front of their peers. They got to the point they had run from previously. Then, at halfway, many of the teenagers stopped hesitating to push on. Tyler was not going to stop, and he crossed the halfway point, continuing to move forward at a steady pace. Suddenly, he heard a scream. It was one of the others, he thought. Or was it the ghost train? He turned around and they were laughing. It was one of them messing around with him. He continued to push forward. Each step started to feel heavier and heavier. He looked down to check that there were no zombie arms holding his legs. His skin had a chill across it, but it was much stronger than before. His body was telling him not to go, and he could feel the hair on his neck giving off this strange tingling sensation. He was nearly there, a few more steps, and then he could casually walk back, showing he was the bravest one who had ever lived in this insignificant little town. People would speak of him for years to come. His heart was pounding, because he knew that he had made it the furthest anyone else had ever made it. Many people had made it to about 3/4 over the bridge. He stopped at the end of the bridge one more step, and he would have made it to the other side. He turned back and looked at the others. Olivia was shouting for him to come back. He smiled in a bragging sort of way and took one more step onto the dirt on the other side of the bridge. He turned again and shouted to them, "See, there's nothing to be afraid of. They are all just dumb stories." Just then he heard a scream. It wasn't any of his friends, and his heart started to pound faster. The sound was familiar to anyone who had worked in an old mine or lumber mill. It was the whistle for the start of work. The sound echoed into the valley, and the older residents knew what the sound meant. He tried to run back, but his feet felt stuck. The others could see the white in his eyes getting bigger, and they started to scream for him to run. It was too late when he saw the ghostly hands come up from the ground and grab his legs. The others were screaming louder and louder. Then they saw hundreds of spectral skeleton hands break out of the air behind Tyler. They were surrounding him slowly. They were grabbing around him in some sort of skeletal embrace. Tyler just looked back at his friends and sighed. They were right. Sometimes the stories are true, he realized, and now he, in sadness and helplessness, would pay the ultimate price. Once he was fully enveloped by the arms, he suddenly blinked out of existence in a dim flash. He was going to be another set of arms to add to the rest of them. They would ensnare anyone insane enough to cross the bridge. In the end, Tyler wanted to be famous, and he was. His friends would tell the tale of what happened to you if you were ever crazy enough to cross the bridge. Just like the sinister clouds rolling over the town, so did the story of Tyler's demise, quickly making its way to the tiny neighboring towns. From that day on, it was named the Bridge of No Return. We hope that scared you a little. Remember to subscribe, and check out Creepy Midnight Stories for more.